Coming up, another week filled with outstanding games, several of which featured late-game heroics. We'll show you the clutch plays that made the difference between wins and losses.
The high school season has hit the midway point, and it's time for us to hand out some midterm grades. See which teams are above the curve and which ones need to pick it up in the second half of the semester.
All that plus a preview of this week's slate on Varsity Sports Live and our picks for some of this week's top matchups. It's all just ahead on Varsity Sports. And how is everybody doing? Alongside Jason Andera, I am Jay Elson. Well, some thrilling finishes in North and South Dakota last week.
It's fun to watch when they come down to the wire, and week after week, we keep getting those big games here on Varsity Sports Live and Varsity Sports.
Absolutely. It seems like they just get a little bit better. Somehow, just when you think it can't get better, it somehow finds a way. All right, well, we're going to start tonight by taking a quick look back on the week that was in our weekly rewind, and we're going to start in South Dakota. Up first, top-ranked Roosevelt visiting Harrisburg, where the Rough Riders turned in another ultra-efficient performance. Rosie scored touchdowns on 6 of their 8 possessions in the ballgame to take down the Tigers 42-7. Tyson Jan ran for 2 of those scores and caught another, while Jet Thune tossed TDs to 3 different receivers.
We have never played Harrisburg before, so we weren't really sure what to expect. We knew they were a big, strong, physical team up front, and they certainly were. They pushed us around a little bit. Their offensive line did, and fortunately our offense was pretty efficient tonight, and we scored, I think, just about every possession.
Washington came out of the gates running the ball as they traded touchdowns early with O'Gorman, but the Warriors outlasted the Knights with some big plays from their quarterback, Jack Skelhaas, who completed 12 of 16 for 138 yards and gained another 84 on the ground. Chaden Fitzsimmons ran for 149 yards and 2 scores to give the Warriors a 39-23 win. That was their first win against the Sioux Falls opponent since Chad Statham took over as a head coach in 2013.
We played as well, I think offensively we played since I've been here in the first half. Second half, tip your hat to them. They made good adjustments. I don't know if we had more than 5-6 plays there in the third quarter. Our defense was able to withstand some things, and then we had the drive and we needed it. We pounded the ball in and got first downs and drove the field and finished it off. So I'm pretty proud of these guys. They deserve this.
It's all about us coming out with energy. If we can come out firing on all cylinders, I like the way we play. We hadn't beat a fellow Sioux Falls school in 2 or 3 years, so this was a huge one for us. I think this is where we can hang our hat and really turn the program around, and we're proud of where we're going.
Out west, Brandon Valley quarterback Alex Waltner turned in the best game of his short varsity career, completing 11 of 15 passes for 244 yards. The Lakes piled up 537 altogether, didn't give up much of anything. Brandon Valley evens its record at 2-2 with a 43-0 shutout win.
It was Lincoln's Lee Ransom and Brookings' Gerald Maxwell who tried to steal the show at Howard Wood Field. Ransom caught 7 passes for 203 and 3 scores, while Maxwell ran for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns before he left the game in the third quarter due to an injury. But it was Devin Coughlin who put Brookings back on top with a 2-yard run for a touchdown with just 17 seconds to play, giving the Bobcats a 28-22 win.
That was an entertaining game. The Aberdeen Central passing attack looked unstoppable on Friday. Gabe Swanson and Lane Teason hooked up for touchdown passes of 38, 70, 23, and 60 yards, but it wasn't enough. Yankton came up with enough big plays of their own down the stretch to secure a 36-25 win. The Bucks forcing 2 turnovers in the last 3 minutes of the game to improve to 3-1 on the year.
Feels pretty good. It's homecoming. It's always good to get a win and homecoming, but it's a good team effort.
Yeah, momentum killers for them and great momentum builders for us. We just got to start to get a little more consistent. But what we've gone through and so forth, hats off to the effort the kids gave. And we got Monday to work on it, and you get a double out of it. You'll take it and hopefully keep improving.
The Bulldogs put another offensive explosion together. They pulled ahead of Lennox in the second half to get a big 54-21 win. Mitch Hansen threw 4 touchdowns, while Brody Fredrickson added 107 yards on the ground.
Another week brought another convincing win for Sioux Falls Christian. The Chargers got out to another fast start and run past Sioux Valley by a count of 30-7. Keegan Van Egdom did his thing yet again, rolling up 183 yards on 24 carries.
And it was Canton doing all the damage against Tri-Valley in the first half. The Seahawks led the Mustangs 21-14 at break, and the defense did the rest. Tri-Valley got a little life with a late fumble recovery, but the Seahawks D held strong to preserve that 21-14 win.
Kind of had a bend, don't break type of defense there in the second half, and they got the job done when it counted. Offensively, we wanted to run the ball and control the clock, and we did not do a very good job of that until the last drive there. We kind of got a couple first downs on them and were able to run out the clock.
All right, that's what happened in the 11-man ranks. Jason, now let's take a look at what happened with some of South Dakota's top 9-man teams.
Yeah, here's the top 10 teams on my power rankings, and as you see, Canastota looking very strong with the shutout. Woolsey with their own shutout. Mount Vernon Plankinton still undefeated at this point, as well as Chester with another big win. And you see Gregory taking out Miller. Those two teams very evenly balanced. Alcester Hudson, Bonham, and Del St. Mary all getting nice wins to continue in that power rankings top 10.
Well, there were a lot of great individual efforts on Friday as well, Jandy, but there's only one varsity game ball for South Dakota. Who gets it?
Yeah, it's got to be Lane Teason. The guy caught 10 passes for 283 yards. You saw some of it in the highlights. 4 touchdowns, all long touchdowns. Didn't get that victory, but what Lane Teason did on the field woke a lot of people up across the state.
A lot of other guys deserving some recognition for their performances on Friday night. One guy I want to talk about is Gerald Maxwell. That kid was incredible. 23 carries, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did that against Lincoln in 3 quarters. They couldn't tackle him.
And Lincoln definitely has some guys on defense that can get it done. So Gerald Maxwell over the last 2 weeks now putting in about 7 touchdowns and really coming to life. He looks like a player to beat.
Yeah, really hoping to see him back on the field. Hopefully the injury is no big deal. Well, if you thought Dickinson might have a letdown a week after that emotional win at Bismarck, well, you were wrong. We'll cover that and the rest of the week that was in North Dakota next.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
You're watching Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network.
All right, thanks, ladies and Tiger. Welcome back to
Tiger.
Varsity Sports. It's time to hit the rewind button now, Jason, on all the action from last week across North Dakota, just as we did in South Dakota. And a lot of people, including us, were interested to see just how Dickinson would fare against Mandan after picking up that emotional win at Bismarck the week before. Well, they fared just fine. Tyrell Harris ran all over the Braves, carrying 20 times for 236 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the defense shut down that potent Mandan passing attack, allowing just 13 yards through the air. The Midgets rolled 41-14 to stay unbeaten.
Minot forced the scorekeepers to unleash the running clock once the Magi got up 35-0 on Century. Ben Belinsky ran in a long touchdown and threw for 187 yards to lead the way as they beat the Patriots 35-7. Austin Nagel also found the end zone twice, handing Century their second loss in a row.
You know, it's a luxury to have Braden Lund, Logan Bischoff, Brett Lundy, all those guys, Carson Moser. We can go to those guys anytime we want. We just got to, identify what defense they're in, and if we can take advantage of that, then we will. And, running the ball, those guys did great, and we got to give a lot of the credit to the offensive line. They deserve pretty much all the credit. And, Mandan's a good team. They beat Century. They limit their mistakes. They're a good team in the West region, and we expect a good game against them.
Red River kept it close again, but once again, they could not keep the opposition out of the end zone. The Rough Riders dropped their 4th straight game, 36-21 at the hands of West Fargo. Chase Tyken paced the Packers on the ground with 174 yards and 4 touchdowns, while Derek Murph was solid in defeat. He threw for 231 yards and 2 scores.
The Demons got back on track at the Bowl, beating Legacy 49-8. Jordan Mann and Jackson Ford both got Bismarck off on the right foot, each scoring a first quarter touchdown, and from there the defense held on while the offense kept it in high gear. Bismarck now at 3-1 on the season.
Fargo North continues to show signs of improvement. The Spartans led South 14-12 at the half. The Bruins put together another big second half to spoil the upset bet, 32-21 the final.
Davies and Cheyenne, they were tied at 14 in the first half. Then it was Tanner Boyanowski who had that big night running. He totaled 172 yards on the ground with 2 scores. That helped the Eagles out to a 29-21 lead in the fourth quarter, but Cheyenne came back. Cole Setter scores a touchdown, pulls them within 2 points, and with just about a minute left in the game, Josh Rorick hit Skylar Angelis with a big touchdown. Look at how did he get out of that? I don't know, but he takes it 76 yards all the way for the score. That ended up giving the Mustangs maybe their biggest win in school history, 35-29.
Friday marked the third straight week that Shiloh Christian has played an unbeaten opponent, and on all three occasions, the Skyhawks have come through with a convincing win. This week's victim, Linton HMB, as Zach Martin led Shiloh Christian to a 48-18 victory. The Skyhawks, by the way, averaged better than 50 points per game during that three-game stretch, Jason. So they are rolling.
That's how you do it,
to say the least. More scores from North Dakota now. Not much really here in the way of surprises.
Yeah, we had a couple games against ranked opponents playing other ranked opponents, and it clearly was Valley City who was the better team in AA over Dickinson Trinity. Park River, Fordville, Lincoln had a tough opponent. They took care of business, and as you see those 9-man teams, the top 5 teams stayed in the top 5 with big wins.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of big individual performances again on Friday, but nobody did more than Lemoore Litchfield Marion's Brady Workin, and for that, he gets our varsity game ball for North Dakota.
Sometimes you see these crazy running totals, and they're blowout games. This one was a double overtime win for Brady Workin, he got the ball 53 times. I'd say the kid is a little tired, but he earned 422 yards, got it in the end zone 6 times, and luckily for them, they got that win in double overtime.
Yeah, Tyrell Harris, we talked about him, that big night for Dickinson, Zach Martin as well. A lot of guys out there having huge nights in the box scores that deserves consideration.
Yeah, and Chase Tyken with another huge night getting in the end zone 4 times for the Packers.
Coming up later, we're going to take a look at the game plan for this week's episode of Varsity Sports Live. But first, Jandy's midterm grades are in. Find out where he thinks teams really rank at the halfway point of the high school football season.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
Well, it's hard to believe, but we have already reached the halfway point of the high school football season, and why not hand out some midterm grades? And for that, we bring in a slightly nerdier version of Jason
with
Andera, Professor
right here.
Jandy. And let's start with the teams that, to this point, maybe deserve that A for effort.
That's right. We're still grading on effort, and a couple teams that deserve a grade for their effort. Fargo North is one of them. Only 1-3 on the season, but look how much better they've played between last year and this year, giving up 21 points per game versus that 33 last year, and really improving on the offensive side too. Adam Hummel, the reason for that improvement on offense. And Brookings from South Dakota is another team. 2-2 on the year, lost that 5 overtime game early, lost another one at home to a really good peer team, but since then have been getting it together. I think they deserve an A for their effort too.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk overachievers now. Which teams have exceeded your expectations?
Oh, this one's easy. Dickinson, right now 4-0, and it's because of their juniors, Tyrell Harris and their quarterback, Sean Steffen. Those two juniors have risen a lot quicker than I thought they would. We knew they'd be physical. We knew they could play a little defense, but those stars have really put them on the map. And then from South Dakota, you got to talk about Sioux Falls Christian. You looked at that murderous row schedule they started out with. McCook Central Montrose took care of business. Sioux Valley, another team that was ranked by a lot of teams, took care of business. So far, they have been outstanding. Their closest game this year, a 23-point win last week. They're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, it's been decisive. How about the teams that have an incomplete at this point?
Yeah, we got to give a few incompletes, and one of them is to Grand Forks Red River. Haven't put a complete performance together yet this season. Their defense not really on the same page, but the good news, they've played 4 very tough teams, and there's still time to hand in that homework and get that grade up before the end of the semester. They could reel off 5 wins in a row. O'Gorman's another team. 2 tough losses to city rivals early in the year, but they can get things put together, get to that semifinals, and see what happens. Still time for them to compete.
Finally, there's the honor roll for best in class.
Yeah, we got to give some love to these top teams in each class across North and South Dakota. You see the South Dakota teams at the top. Roosevelt we expected, Pierre we expected, Madison we expected, Winter always a good team, Woolsey Wessington my best team in 9AA, although some other people think there's some other teams to watch there. Canastota's played very well, and Alcester Hudson, a team that's kind of come out of nowhere and put a great season together. In North Dakota, Minot, Beulah, Park River, and Thompson, teams we all knew would be good. I don't know if we knew how good Beulah would be. They look very good. to this point in the midterm grades.
Thompson maybe supplanting Cavalier at the top of the 9-man ranks.
They're going to be tough to beat
in North Dakota. All right, well, coming up, it's going to be another busy Friday night in the Midco SN studios. We're going to give you an early look at where our cameras are going to be heading for Varsity Sports Live and preview some of those matchups when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
All right, it is preview time, and here's a look at the games that we are going to get to this Friday night for Varsity Sports Live. And Jandy, which of these contests is going to be getting the most attention from you as the night unfolds?
Well, there's a couple interesting ones right at the top of the slate here in Sioux Falls. Both 5 o'clock starts because they're homecoming games. Both those homecoming teams are coming off pretty tough losses in games that they probably didn't think they were going to lose. We're talking about Aberdeen Central at Sioux Falls Lincoln with that tough loss last week, and we're talking about Watertown visiting Sioux Falls O'Gorman. I do think those games will be interesting just to see how they bounce off the mat.
Yeah, absolutely. In North Dakota now, we've got a couple of really good small school matchups. Northern Cass at Carrington in Class A, and a 9-man battle between Hankinson and Richland. Those 4 teams, Jason, are combined 18-0.
Yeah, that's how you get it done in the first half of the season. I think Northern Cass is maybe a little underrated, but I think Carrington's underrated as well. We'll talk about that one a little more in the pick segment coming up next. Hankinson and Richland, I mean, this is an excellent region, first of all. It's going to be tough to win that region. One of these 2 teams are going to, but it's going to be tough for Hankinson to go into Colfax, where Richland has just been blowing teams out. Jake Island, Trevor Flaw doing a great job running the ball, and Hankinson on the other side have had great quarterback play out of Mason Falk. So it's going to be important for Hankinson to get on the board early in that one.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to another exciting week on Varsity Sports Live. We talked about it earlier in the show. Each week, we're not expecting it to be able to surpass what we saw the week before. And somehow, some way, these guys are doing it for us.
We're getting great games. And another one to talk about is going to be our game of the week, Yankton against Pierre. That one will be on following next week's show on Wednesday night. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond. They remember what happened last year when Yankton really ran it straight down their throats in Pierre, and I think Pierre wants some revenge on that one.
Yeah, big matchup certainly in the ESD, and we're looking forward to that. And again, 10:30 Varsity Sports Live here. Jason and Tom Neiman taking you through all of the happenings in high school football, both North and South Dakota. A lot of great highlights and analysis, and so you'll hear from a lot of different people as the night goes on. But again, 10:30 here on Midco Sports Network. Well, you know where our cameras are going to be on Friday. What you don't know is who we think are going to win some of those top matchups. But we're going to change that right after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. Jay Elson, Jason Andera. We're going to have some fun as we do every week to close the show with another round of Pigskin Pick'em. And I will say I've struggled a bit through the first couple of weeks, Jason, but I did get you at least in the head-to-head portion last week.
Yes, the comeback has started.
Yep. So
wait for those upset picks to roll in, and you'll be right back there.
Yeah, so you did nail your upset pick for what, the second straight week now? So
nobody's counting.
So while I was gaining ground, I kind of did and kind of didn't. Yeah. But we'll see if we can change that here over the next couple of minutes. All right, Brandon Valley at Harrisburg as we start in South Dakota.
This one is going to come down to those interior lines. I talked to Chad Garrow. He said it's going to be tough for us to win that battle on the lines. We also have to protect the ball. We've had trouble with turnovers in the games that we've lost early on this year. If they can get those 2 things to go their way, it's going to be tough, but I think they can go into the Tigers' home field and steal one on the road. I'm going to take Brandon Valley.
Yeah, Harrisburg typically pretty good at home. The offense with them right now, though, is a little bit of a question mark for me. The last 3 games, Brandon Valley's defense has given up just 12, 14, and nothing in terms of points. So when you consider those 2 things, I like Brandon Valley. I'm going to give the Lynx the edge in this one. We talked a little bit about it in the preview segment. That big ESD matchup in the capital city as Yankton makes the trip to Pierre for a second straight year.
I don't think there's a quarterback playing better right now than Brevin Kaiser. The reason he has so many different receivers that are doing well is because, you know, they've got a great quarterback throwing him the ball, and he puts it perfectly right on the numbers every time. I think he continues to do that against a banged-up team in Yankton. I think Pierre gets the win.
Both teams unbeaten against the ESD coming into this one. Of course, when teams are so even, quarterback play is huge. And you're right, Brevin Kaiser is about as good as it gets in the state of South Dakota, and that gives the Govs the edge in my book. In North Dakota, Minot at Mandan.
You know, I hesitated a little bit. I thought maybe this would be the upset game of the week. Mandan has played so well. Last week, they just got beat up front, and I think that's something that they've been working on all week. They're going to have to play much bigger on the lines, but the way Ben Belinsky and company is playing right now, nobody's beating the Magi.
Well, each of them has hosted Century in the last 2 weeks. Mandan nipped by the Patriots 16-14. Minot kind of housed them, and we really haven't seen the Magi take a team to the cleaners like that yet. And that's kind of a scary thing, I think, for the rest of AAA if Minot really gets rolling. But I think the Magi go on the road and get the win here. And Class 1A, big game here. Northern Cass at Carrington.
Yeah, I think Northern Cass has a chance to keep this game close. But I think late in the game is when Carrington wears out other teams, and they do it with Walker Carr, who has been a touchdown machine this year. I think Carrington wins.
Yeah, Carrington's outscored their opponents in their 2 home games, 124-13. They have a common opponent on the schedule, Rugby. Narrow win for Northern Cass, and that was on the road at Rugby. Carrington just housed them, 69-6 on their home field. I think the Carrington is just too strong. I think they get the win here. Quickly now, upset picks of the week.
I got to go with Grand Forks Red River. Winless on the season so far. They're playing a team that gives up a lot of points. They give up a lot of points. If there's one thing this game will be, it'll be fun, but I think the Riders finally get their first win on the road.
Yeah, they feel like a team that just needs something to go their way, and maybe the season turns out a dime for them.
Hold on to those passes.
This could be it. I'll give you that. All right, North Dakota Class A is where I'm going. I like West Hope, Newburgh, Glenburn over Velva at home. A couple of pretty even teams here, but I'm going to take that as my upset pick for this week. All right, that is going to do it for us. For Jason Andera, I'm Jay Elson. Again, remember to bring it back here Friday night, 10:30, for another edition of Varsity Sports Live.